Well, I just finished watching the first presidential debate for the 2024 election, and I'm going to be giving my rapid fire thoughts. I'll be releasing this video about an hour and a half after the debate because it'll take a little while to process. But I literally finished watching the debate 5-10 minutes ago, and I'm going to be giving my immediate reactions to it. So, no script, no written down list of takeaways. These are just my raw thoughts as someone who watched the entirety of that debate. So, the first thing I'm going to kind of give the candidates a grade at the end, but I'm going to kind of work backwards and reverse engineer it because the first thing that I want to say is that I don't think there's a single person who watched that debate who isn't already heavily partisan towards one side that came away encouraged about the future for this country. I think, put plainly, Biden was incredibly unimpressive. He was uninspiring. And most importantly, or I think perhaps most detrimentally for him and the Democrats, he did not in any way address the fears about him being too old for the job. That was the number one thing he had to do. And that's why I thought he was going to have an okay night, because I thought that as long as he didn't do something bad or didn't, appear out of it, he was going to be able to convince at least some voters, a decent chunk of voters in the middle, that he is still capable of doing the job. He didn't do that. So that's an immediate loss for him, and I'll talk about that in a second. But that's kind of half the puzzle, right? Like, that's half the reason why I think that Americans in the middle who aren't tied to one party heavily watched that debate and were very, disappointed, because that's their president, and I think Joe Biden was not good tonight. And I've seen Joe Biden speak. I watched the State of the Union. I've watched some of his other speeches. I don't watch all of his speeches because often they're political theater, but I've seen Joe Biden speak before. He usually sounds a heck of a lot better than that. And this is a guy who's not a very good speaker. He's for a very long time dealt with a speech impediment, and he's getting old. He's 81. No, I think he's 82, actually. No, he's 81. He'll turn 82 in November. So this is a guy who's very old, and he's already, he's had a history of dealing with these problems in terms of his speaking. He's never been that great of a debater. So, that is the first reason why I think that most Americans saw that debate and were unhappy. Now, Trump, I think, broadly had a good night, and I'll get into that again in a second, but I think that he really missed a lot of opportunities to contrast himself to Biden. What Trump should have done was, after the first 20-30 minutes that it became clear he was winning that debate, he should have switched to a more optimistic tone, right? Like, to a tone of, look, this is where we are right now. Look at my opponent. My opponent is not inspiring confidence in anyone right now, right? Here's how I'm different. He didn't do that. In the final 15 minutes of the debate, he talked about election fraud. He kept going, on and on about things that to me didn't really seem like they were helping him get anywhere. I really think he hurt himself by doing that. Now, is it equal to Biden? No. Trump's gaffes and mistakes were, I think, like a quarter of Biden's in terms of how much they hurt him. But it could have been a better night for Trump, too. So if I were giving him a grade, I'd give him a B+, maybe. And I think this was actually his best debate ever. And I've watched, I think, prior to tonight, I watched all 5 of Donald Trump's debates. I watched his 3 against Hillary Clinton, and I watched his 2 against Joe Biden in 2020. I think that was his best debate. And Donald Trump's not a very good debater in general. So B+, maybe A- night if I'm feeling generous. But this is, to me, feels like a B+. Now, Biden, like I said at the beginning of the video, I'll reverse engineer my grades. Biden, I think it's a C- maybe. Probably closer to a C- than a C if we're being real. Low 70s. So Trump wins. Now, there are 3 main reasons that I can just think off the top of my head, but I might add more because I didn't outline this video before. So the first thing was that Biden didn't at all address the elephant in the room, right? So first of all, apparently he had a cold, which is why, especially the first 10 minutes, he sounded horrible. Like, Biden got better as the debate went on, both in terms of speaking quality and in terms of the points he was making. But, like, his voice the first 10 minutes for his first 2 or 3 times he was prompted his voice sounded very bad, and I think there's no way around that. And Democratic sources have since come out and said, look, he had a cold, which is fine, right? Like, obviously, if you have a minor cold, you'd still debate. But again, I don't know what was stopping Biden from taking 3 seconds at the beginning of his 2-minute, his first 2-minute period of remarks at the beginning of the debate and saying, look, I have a cold tonight. something along those lines. You have to address the elephant in the room in American politics. That's one thing. Another thing that he didn't do in terms of addressing the elephant in the room is talking about his age. He had a prime opportunity at the end of that debate when the moderator, I think Dana Bashed, asked him, look, you're going to be 86 in January 2029 when you be leaving office. How can you address the concerns of the voters about that, right? Like Biden could have said, I know I'm old. I know that there are a lot of concerns about that, as there should be. I'm getting up there. Here's why I'm still better than Trump. He should have done that. And obviously that's off the top of my head. If I were getting paid to work for the Biden campaign and I had the chance to write a statement or something like that, because obviously that was not an unpredictable question. That was an easy question. I would say that was a softball, because obviously everyone and their mother knew walking into that debate, Biden was going to be asked about his age. And so if I'm an advisor for President Biden, or if I'm working for the Democratic Party, what would I do? I would practice pretty diligently a response to a question that would at least try to reassure voters. To me, he didn't feel like he had a response to that. So that was a big missed opportunity for Biden, and I think that was the first reason why he lost the debate. The second reason was just the contrast between him and Trump. It could have been better, I think, for Trump. Like I said at the beginning of the video, Trump really should have gone out there and offered a more optimistic vision for the country. Instead, he kind of kept complaining and saying, look, Biden's horrible, you're the worst president ever. They went back and forth. And I don't think that helped either of them. To me, or I think to a lot of people, they probably came off as two, cranky 80-something year olds, Trump 78, Biden being 81, two cranky, older, politicians who are not very popular in this country, saying that the other one's the worst president in the history of this country. And Biden, I think 3 times brought up 150 historians voted and said Trump was the worst president ever. And Trump kept saying, you are incompetent, you keep screwing things up. During when I was president, it was sunshine and rainbows. Everything was perfect. The economy was at 1,000%. Like, saying kind of buzzwords that don't make any sense, right? Like, I think we kind of got that vibe from Trump. But Biden wasn't offering anything either. He was just saying, look, 150 historians said you were the worst president ever. That didn't prove anything to me either. So the contrast was clear, though, aside from that. Trump spoke better, which I think does matter, especially when a big concern in this campaign has been Biden's age. Trump also, I think, was a bit more on message. Like, there were times when Biden was asked a question. I think he actually had a really missed opportunity with abortion, where he was asked a question about abortion, and he transitioned to talking about immigration. And that was already bad enough, because abortion is an area where Democrats should be looking, like, in my opinion, the more Democrats talk about abortion, the more they win. That's why they did well in 2022. And if Biden wins in November, I think it'll be in part because he talks about abortion more, because Democrats win that message on abortion. But what did he do? He got a 2-minute, slot of time to talk about abortion. Instead of hammering Trump, he talked about abortion for maybe 30 seconds, then transitioned to immigration, and talking about, I don't even know. There were times where Biden spoke where I understood 75% of what he was saying, but couldn't fully make it out, right? Because between this cold and the fact that he was speaking quietly, it was genuinely hard to understand him sometimes. So that was, to me, a big moment where Trump came off better, because Trump, obviously, to be completely candid here, there were things he said that were not true. And I think you could fact check both these candidates. I do think that Trump lied more, just off my estimation. I'm open to being proved wrong about that, but I do think that Trump told more objective mistruths than Biden this debate. But the contrast was clear just in terms of the speaking and in terms of staying on message. Trump was more consistent all night. And then the final reason I thought that Biden lost the debate, that I think no one seems to be talking about, is the fact that there was no saving grace for him, right? Like, everyone's saying, okay, so Biden started out the first 10 minutes horrible, and then it got better as the debate went on. And I agree. It's a 90-minute debate. I think for only like a combined 12, 13 minutes of that 90-minute portion was Biden genuinely horrible. There were times in the debate where you could have watched and you could have thought it was a draw, right? Because Trump had his bad moments with the substance of what he was saying. I think Biden didn't really deliver anything all that well all night. So there were times where it was a wash. But there were also times, I think, for those 12, 13 minutes where it was very bad for Biden. And the thing that he needed to get after he opened so poorly was a clippable moment from Trump. He needed Trump to see something stupid, and for him to be able to clip it, make money off of it, fundraise off of it, and then make it go viral and have American voters see that and, be repulsed by Trump, right? But the problem is, again, that Trump didn't do anything that I thought was super out of character. He made a mistake talking about election fraud. I think that was a bad move by him, because he went 80% of that debate without talking about it, and then he talked about how 2020 was a stolen election and how it was fraudulent, which are things that are not true and, more importantly, not popular with the American electorate. But like, the thing with Biden was that he didn't have a moment where he really hammered Trump. He had some moments where I thought he was decent. Like, I think when he got angry with Trump in the beginning, where he said my son was not a sucker or a loser, I thought that was a genuinely good moment for him. But there wasn't a moment that he can clip, put 20 seconds of it on Twitter, and say, look, Donald Trump is crazy, he thinks this. The closest thing he got to Donald Trump saying something stupid, I think, was the election fraud thing. But even then, that didn't, to me, nearly cancel out the consistent performance by Biden throughout that debate. So those are 3 reasons why Biden lost. To justify the grades, I think Biden gets a C minus, maybe a C. He probably would get like a D minus for the first 10 minutes and then like a C plus B minus for the rest of the debate. But again, the beginning of the debate is always the most important part, because it's where people watch it the most. Because, once you're 45, 60 minutes into a debate, people start tuning out, start talking to, start going on their phone, start talking to other people, maybe turn off the TV because they don't like what they're seeing. And I'm sure there are many people who did that. I'm sure there were a lot of people who were watching that debate and did not want to watch it. So, because Biden started out so poorly, I had to give him a low grade. But I mean, like, I guess to voters who watched the entirety of the debate, it would have been better. But even then, at no point in the debate did I think see Biden being comfortable. And then Trump had a lot of good moments. To me, the biggest reason I think he won that debate that I haven't already gotten into, aside from like I've talked about 3 reasons Biden lost, I think Trump did something really well, which was that he didn't, interrupt that much. He didn't come off as deranged, because I think Trump's biggest enemy is himself. He's his own worst enemy. And in the first debate of 2020, I thought Biden won that debate clearly, because Trump looked so unpresidential, so deranged, so angry, and he was already losing in the polls at that time. Whereas this time, Trump came off as more presidential, I would say. Neither of them were, I think, that rude. Biden did actually try to body shame Trump, which I thought was kind of funny. And then Trump was making fun of Biden a lot. Like, they weren't nice to each other, but, they weren't, it wasn't as chaotic as the first 2020 debate with Chris Wallace. But Trump came off poorly in that debate because he was already losing and he just looked deranged. This time, I think, Trump contained himself. He didn't do anything that made him appear rude. Because, again, the American populace's biggest problem with Trump, when you look at just opinion polls, is that they think he's rude and they think he's not a nice guy. That's one of the reasons that people don't like Trump as a person. And I think that this debate, he did a decent job of, improving that image. So those are my thoughts on the debate. Again, if that was unorganized and just kind of, very rapid, a lot of points at once, my apologies, but I want to get this out as soon as possible. So let me know what you think. Let me know if you know anyone or if you yourself have changed your opinion after watching this debate. The silver lining for Biden is that it is only June. If this were in October, I think it would be a lot worse. But 5 months till the election, and think about in June 2020 where we were compared to November 2020. So again, let me know what you thought of the debate, and I'll see you on the next one.